Hello, and welcome to the Guilbault Girls Show, where you will have the opportunity to hear from mothers, fathers, siblings, and individuals themselves about their journey of living with a disability. I know, it's called Guilbault Girls, but we have a bonus for you as we get the Guilbault boys to interview some of the dads and siblings and get their perspectives too. We'll also have special guests from time to time to share the many resources that are available to those living with a disability and their families. So get ready to laugh, smile, cry, maybe even get a little angry when you hear some of these stories of their day-to-day struggles. But let's not forget their many triumphs. As they say, it takes a village. And if it weren't for our village, we wouldn't be where we are today. So join us. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Guilbault Girls Show. I'm your host, Karen Guilbault, and today's guest is Samantha Belcher-Blake. Did I pronounce that right?
You did.
Okay, awesome. So Sam is 32 years old and has a beautiful 8-year-old daughter named Hazel, who is in the process of being adopted by her husband, Nick Blake. After losing both of her parents within 6 months of each other, Sam had to step up to care for her 36-year-old sister, Heather, who has developmental delays. When Heather was young, doctors had tried to talk her parents into putting her into a home with people like her, and they refused. The doctor said that she would never walk or talk, and boy, did she prove them wrong. And I can't tell you how many other parents have been told that. I've been told that about my own daughter. So many parents that I talk to time and time again, these are these stories that they're telling me how they've been told that their kids are not going to do anything. And it's like, yeah, watch now, it's crazy. But another thing that's scary too. So I read an article that was written in 2022 that there are more than 6 million Americans that have a developmental disability, and a growing number of them have grown into adults who continue to be cared for by their parents. Those parents are growing older too, and there are now more than 8 million people over 60 caring for someone with an intellectual or developmental disabilities in their home. One of the biggest concerns is what happens to them when those parents pass away. And it's scary nowadays because let's face it, there's such a lack of direct support personnel to even hire on to care for our loved ones, let alone the fight for higher wages. So then you throw that into it, not like, hello, we have enough to worry about, then to add that in. So I'm just thankful that you were willing to come on and share your story and be vulnerable. As I said before, nothing's off the table. You feel your feelings, and you're supposed to feel your feelings. And I know that you're going to touch many out there and share your story, and it's going to help someone else, in the process.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, thank you. And let's dive in. In one word, how would you describe what it was like growing up having a sister with a disability?
Different.
Okay. What type of daily life challenges did you have to watch your sister go through, and how did that make you feel?
People not understanding, because it was not saying that it's common now, but it's more educated now to take care of a child, a sibling, anyone with developmental delay or with any type of situation like that. I just didn't understand as a kid growing up. So that's basically,
We have a friend that is, oh gosh, how old is he now? I'm going to be 50. So he's got to be like late 50s maybe. And he was in a situation way back when where he was in special education, and they didn't even have like pull-out rooms or anything. They didn't let them in mainstream, and his classroom was in the janitor's closet. Yes. I need to have him on the show, and he's a huge advocate, and his son has autism, and his story is amazing, and it's crazy to see how far we've come, but yet we still have so much further to go.
Right.
So did you have friends like asking you what's wrong with your sister, or like?
Yes, I always had friends that would ask, and I guess so. A lot of parents to these kids and stuff would say, oh, it's because your mom did drugs while your sister was born. And so people were just really harsh about it. My parents eventually were addicts, but at the time, my mom had just a very difficult birth. Her umbilical cord got wrapped around her neck. And that's what happened. So she was normal, I guess you'd say, up until birth. And then that happened, and it was just a freak accident. So, I mean, growing up, people would be like, you have a retarded sister. And that word just kills me. And people would make fun of her. And I never understood. So I never knew what to do until I became an adult.
Right.
I used to get into fights with people because they'd be so mean and like steal her bicycle from her. My dad got her through a bicycle as a kid, adult tricycle. And kids were just mean. I just never understood why people were so mean about it, but it's the way that they were raised. It's what they were taught. And people would say, you can't hang out with her because she has a retarded sister and stuff like that. And growing up these days, people don't, most parents don't raise their children that way. So
Right.
I still, to this day, don't understand why people did it. I just don't understand how people could be so cruel just because she was different.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So
And what and first of all too with the umbilical cord, I mean, so I was on bed rest for 42 days in the hospital with my daughter, and I'll never forget. I was only in not that long, and one of the girls ended up, and it was the most scariest thing I'll never forget. Everybody's screaming, people are going by. There's a lady literally on top of the gurney, with her, and apparently she had to like. I don't know whether the baby was coming out. She was like in active labor, and the baby had the cord wrapped around her head, and it was scary because you just heard people screaming and things over the intercom, and I saw them going by, and they were on top of the girl, and thank God the baby made it. She made it, but those things are scary, and people don't understand those things cause
right,
issues because that's
right,
lack of oxygen that your sister had during that time.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So I hate how people speculate and jump to conclusions and judge people too. That's another thing that drives me nuts. But so growing up, did you ever feel left out or like you came last because your sisters had more needs to be met?
I did. So my parents got divorced. I don't remember how old I was, but I was younger. I'm going to say around 4 or 5. I really don't know the age. So any of my family watching this, I'm sorry, I don't know. Um, um, I honestly thought that she faked it for the longest time.
Okay.
I was like, Dad, she's fine. And so like I would find things. I'd be like, see, she can do that. But that's because other people, and I know we're going to jump into this later, but it also applies for now, enabled her because they felt bad for her. They do everything for her, but she was capable of doing so
So much
much.
more.
And so I got left out of a lot of things. My mom, as we got older, like I said, my parents both had an addiction problem while they were separated or divorced. But so growing up, we had drug addict parents. So for people to understand in the first place that I had a mentally handicapped sister along with drug addict parents made it 10 times worse.
Yeah.
Because they would just blame the drugs. And I'm like, whatever. But I did feel left out. At one point, my grandmother had to get custody of my sister and I. And she lived in my dad's home. And my dad had this beautiful house in Belmont. But she treated us equal. She treated us equal. She treated my sister equally, just like my dad did. My mom didn't as much. So it sucked. Going places, Heather always got treated different, but I never understood. I understand now.
Right.
But as a child, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Because
And
I was like,
there's never
do
enough
it too.
support for siblings.
There wasn't there. I never had support. And my sister went to a school here in Gaston County called Webb Street. And it is a specific school for people like her.
Okay.
So we did have that. My dad, when I tell you he did everything he could, he did sleep studies. He did every single program, anything that you could do to better understand my sister. My dad did it. No questions asked. My dad reached out and did everything he could against doctor's orders. So my sister ended up winning Special Olympics, running, swimming after they told her she couldn't. And my dad, he was this grumpy old man, but he'd be like, I told you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
growing up, I mean, yeah, it was different, but my parents had hope. But
Yeah.
we had a school that she went to, and I was always scared to go there because I thought if they touched me, I don't know what was gonna happen
Mm-hmm.
to me as a kid. But
Mm-hmm.
I was like, Dad, everybody's just faking it. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't understand. And my
And again,
dad
that
was,
comes back to that education piece and
mhm,
how, how to teach others about
right,
it.
right. And that's where Webb Street School did amazing. I still keep in contact with her teachers.
That's
My
awesome.
sister's bus driver, her name is Kathy, and she is phenomenal, and she's helped us so much through this journey that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
So we're blessed to have that program, but not everybody knew about it or
About
knew
it.
that there was even a school for people. People would make fun of her for riding the short bus, and because she rode a short bus, is what it was. So
Mm-hmm.
when people say you ride the short bus or and all that, it hits a nerve because I'm like, well, it's true. There really is a short bus for mentally handicapped people.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
people are not very mindful.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. Um, did you or your sister ever experience any bullying growing up due to her disability? Well, which you
She
kind of
did.
did touch in how they stole her bike and
Yeah, they would steal her bike. They'd try to beat her up. And I mean, we'd ride around the neighborhood in this trailer park we lived in years ago. And people were just mean. We'd go places and people would say stuff. My mom always ignored them, but it always got to me. My
yeah.
parents always ignored them, but for some reason, it always got to me. So
Mm-hmm.
I got in, I wasn't a troubled kid, but I always got in trouble for taking up for my sister.
Yeah.
And to this day, when people are rude to her in public or say something, especially when like we go to Care Wins, I still don't hold back. And I don't know if that's a negative impact on, our healing journey
Mm-hmm.
or if it's just normal.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's a
growing
little bit
up,
of I think it's a little bit of both.
yeah,
And even just maybe I remember, and this was going back way back when Faith was younger, and she was starting to kind of understand and realize, if people were treating her different or looking at her different, like, what's wrong with you, whatever.
right.
And then you would have a lot of young kids looking at her and asking, what's wrong with her? I'll never forget being in the grocery store and she was young. She was I had her in just a regular stroller, wasn't an adapted stroller or anything. And she had casts on each leg because she had just had lengthening surgery. And
Mhm.
one girl's like, oh, did she break her legs? And her PT would say, you guys really need to sit down and come up with something nifty to say as a comeback if somebody's looking at you. And it doesn't have to be in a mean way, but even just
Right,
like in an educational way, or, you know what I mean? But I'll never
right,
forget that conversation because sometimes it can be awkward, you know what I mean? And then it's
right,
like, just say hi or, ask me if you have a question or, or what can I say to
right.
like, that's going to be a good comeback, but yet, I don't know,
Informing.
informing. Yeah. Cause it is really about education.
Right.
And there are a lot of ignorant people and it gets under your
I mean,
skin,
that's what I
but
tell people. I'm like, well, she's mentally handicapped. So, and then I'll just stare at them like questions, like,
mm-hmm,
what do you have to say? Like, because
mm-hmm,
it bothers me because it's like, hey, you're being so rude and you don't even know what's going on.
on. Yeah.
I mean,
How
that's for
does your
everyone, like
sister
in general.
react? Like, does she
She don't
understand?
care. She does not
Yeah.
care. She is not self-aware of anything that
Mm-hmm.
she does and stuff. Like if her pants are crooked or her pants aren't pulled all the way up, she don't care. She's like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So in public, if people are staring at her and stuff, she actually stares at people, but it's not on purpose. She's just
Right.
watching what they're doing. But
Doing.
she can't close her mouth due to her tongue being so big.
Okay.
And so her mouth's always open. So she's always like, staring at people. So we're working on it because I'm trying to teach her, hey, let's just not stare at people just to
Mm-hmm.
avoid the whole thing. And she's doing better at it. But growing up,
Yeah.
she was a kid. She wasn't gonna listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. What about during those hard times? Because you went up with, you grew up with a lot of trauma. And
mhm.
then, and then with having your sister and everything, was there during those hard times, was there an outlet that you could escape to? And what did
No,
you do like to kind of
I think I just played outside. I think I was always just outside as a kid. Oh, I know I was. My dad got us four wheelers. We had a great life growing up for the most part, other than the addiction, which that didn't affect me until I became a teenager and started understanding things better. But
Right.
um, not really. I mean, I'd play outside with my best friends. Their names were Wesley and Tommy, and they lived across the street from us, and they understood her very well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just go outside, but it wasn't common. I didn't know anybody else that had a
Right.
sibling or anyone that was mentally handicapped. So
Right.
I didn't know anybody. So I didn't really have an outlet. And I do now. And so I'm still trying to get over that. To me, that was childhood trauma because it was a lot. My sister she still has them as an adult, really bad tantrums. She'll
Okay.
throw herself on the floor and she'll kick and scream. And as a child, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, why are we
Mm-hmm.
doing this today?
Mm-hmm.
So we'd go to Care Wins. If she got mad or didn't get her way or something would happen, she'd throw herself on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And she threw herself on the ground one time. She pulled her arm out of socket because she wouldn't let go of my mom's hand. So, I mean, at Care Wins. So it was as a kid, embarrassing to me. So I didn't really have any outlet. I just had to deal with it
Right.
there in the moment.
Yeah.
So that was really difficult and hard. And I hope that people that have a sibling and stuff like that these days do have an outlet and do have somebody to talk to so they don't have to deal with that as an adult
Yeah.
because it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. Um, so what were some of your hobbies, sports, and activities? You said you had four-wheelers and stuff. What about your sister? Did you guys play
Yes.
any other sports
My
or do activities?
Yep, my dad kept her. My sister loves bowling. So my dad took us bowling. We love going to Carowinds. He always got us a season pass for our birthday every year.
Okay, so
Um,
what's Carowinds?
Carowinds, it's an amusement park.
Okay, I
We
personally
live
thought it
by
was like a grocery
Carowinds.
store, like Winn-Dixie or something.
No, so Carowinds is an amusement park here. It's in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's
Okay.
in North and South Carolinas, and I think it's like split down the middle. One side's North Carolina, one side's South Carolina. But my sister loves going there. So
Okay.
every year we went there, but my sister was very involved. My dad had her very involved with the Special Olympics,
Okay.
running and swimming. I'll have to send you in her medals and stuff to show them to you. We just moved into our new house. So
Okay.
she won swimming all the time and she won running first place all the time.
That's
So
so
she
awesome.
participated in the Special Olympics heavily, and my dad was pushing her for it. So
Good. And what about you? What did you do? Did you have
um,
sports?
I was in color guard in high school, so where they spin the flag and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I just really was a full wheeling outside kind of girl. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really do too much in sports wise. I was just always outside. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
didn't do much.
All right, let me see. So, all right, so like you said, it was difficult for you to find people to connect with that
Mhm.
had siblings. So, what about now that you have your sister and you are an adult? Do you uh, have you connected or have you found your people, if you will, that understand and are there for you, that you can call up and be like, just to vent of maybe a hard time that happened that day or in that moment, or to get advice or to help with you out, to advocate for your sister or
Right. So I have a few. So my husband, 100%. We go through this together. This is new to him as well as it's new to me. I just understand a little bit better growing up with her. My
Mhm.
husband's 100% been my support system. Um,
Which says a lot, because a
yes,
lot of men, a lot of
wouldn't
fathers, if you will, won't even deal with their kids, and it scares them, they run away. And then
correct.
for him to take on a sibling, that's huge, so
Yeah,
kudos.
it's been mentally exhausting, and I couldn't imagine how he feels and how he deals with it. But he does it, and he does it every day, no matter what. He does anything that them girls need, Hazel and Heather. He does everything he can for them. So we have him and Kathy, which is my sister's old bus driver. So she used to deal with my sister's tantrums and all that. She would just take my sister home. If my sister had a tantrum and stuff at school, she'd hop on that bus and just take Heather home. She's like, we're not doing this today. And Kathy is with me on her being more self-motivated, her being able to do things because Kathy could see it and helped her at school do it. So
Mhm.
Kathy is fully aware, and Kathy is amazing. Um, our cousin Nicole, she is a little bit older than my sister, but she grew up with us also. And she actually just finished taking CPR classes and stuff to be paid to do respite care for my sister.
Yay. Okay.
So she helps me if my sister is having a tantrum or stuff. I call Nicole and I'm like, please come up here. And she lives 30 minutes away. She comes up here and she helps me. She gets my sister on Thursdays. My sister goes and stays the night with her Thursdays, and then they'll come back Saturdays and she'll stay
Okay.
Saturday night with us. And she'll go home on Sundays.
That's
So,
good because you guys also need that outlet and that to be
right,
husband and wife and to be also with your daughter. How
right.
old was your daughter when you and your husband got together?
She was actually 6 years old. So, um, 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
So it was just me and her for 6 years. And then literally the night that my dad passed away, so my husband and I have known each other for years. The night my dad passed away, I called him at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was pouring down rain. Um, I had the girls and I had my Hazel had a friend over and I had a little boy over that I was babysitting. He liked to stay the night all the time. He's little. So he was like, I want to stay. And I'm like, that's fine. I got the call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and my husband got here within, which he was my boyfriend then, within 10 minutes. Came inside. I actually was having a panic attack, so I couldn't breathe. And I was in the
Mhm.
bathroom trying to like breathe. There's kids. I'm trying to call parents.
Mhm.
He came inside and picked my daughter up and just held her. And he's never left since then.
Then.
We've only been one night apart from each other, and that was the night before our wedding. That
Oh,
man has never left.
yeah.
So he
You
knew
got a
my
feeling.
situation. We'd been talking for a while, but I knew him for years prior. He's just been around, and ever since then he's never left. So he's been amazing. He knew what we were having to do. This last month actually marks 1 year that I've been a legal guardian for my sister.
Okay.
So I had to go to court and do all that to get custody of her from the state since my parents didn't have anything in effect for that.
Yeah, and I definitely wanted to talk about that too. Yeah.
Yes, that was scary, even though, I mean, I know it would take a while for them to catch up to do anything in the first place, but it was still scary. So at 6 months, I had to check in with them. And this week, I have to check in with them again for my 1 year for it to be 100% legal.
Okay.
Um, and when they heard my story and they heard the story of everything going on, the judge was crying, my attorney was crying. So it was very emotional because they were like, nobody does this. They said that, most people just give their sibling to the state because that's not what they're going to deal with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that was rough. I was like, I guess I just don't understand. But then at the same time, wanting to have a normal life, some people can't handle this situation. I don't know how I do sometimes when it's bad days. When it's bad days, I'm like, I don't know how I do this.
Right.
So I don't have
And then on the flip side, you do what you do because you have no choice and that's what you do. You
right,
have to do it, so you do it.
right. I mean, that's my sister. I couldn't imagine. I have family members still that are like, put her in a home, put her with people like her. They still say that, and it kills me because I'm like, our parents passed. My mom was her absolute world. My mother was her world. And then our dad to die and our grandma died all within a year, like within that year. And she lived with my grandmother and my mom. My mom and grandmother lived together.
Okay.
And my sisters had lived there for at least 10 years because my mom ended up getting custody back and all that years later.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom tried to make up for lost time
Time.
and all the bad things that she did. So that's where the enabling comes in because my mom was not an enabler until she got sick with
Okay.
heart disease. So
Okay. Yeah, and that makes sense. That makes sense.
that's
Well,
what I mean by enabling. So
yeah. Yeah.
she
The
felt
so now as an adult having the
Mhm.
responsibility of your sister, so your relationship with your sister growing up, but now your relationship is different because now you're not just the sister, you are now the
Right.
guardian. So how
Right.
has that relationship, if any, changed? And have
Yes.
you felt the changes or even the attitude or the tension, or not even tension, but just any emotion between the two of you, or her being like,
Mhm.
oh wow, she's now just not my sister. She's like my caretaker, or my, not mom, but you know what I mean, my
She
authority.
hates it. She loves me, but she hates it. Absolutely hates it. Um, she doesn't like that I tell her what to do. She doesn't like that I have rules. She doesn't like none of that because I'm her sister. And that's what I try to tell people. Me and my sister still get into arguments. Me and my sister still get into fights. She is my sister.
Mm-hmm.
I try my best to be an adult towards her, but she doesn't see me that way. I'm her sister. So
Right.
that's what people don't understand. They're
Yeah.
like, you and your sister talk to each other that way? I'm like, yep. Because I mean, my
Uh-huh.
sister, when she gets mad, she'll call me the B word in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, bruh, we doing this today? You really want to do this today? So, I mean, she's very capable of doing a lot on her own. She has a cell phone. She can stay home for hours, not a full night, but she can
Right.
stay home by herself during the day. I don't like to, but she does. And that has prevented me from doing a lot of things in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So, like having a full time job regularly, like I used to before my husband came along. So, um, I can't go out and work 40 hours a week. If my sister's having a bad day, I have to be
Be
home.
home.
No if ands or buts. And
But
there's no job that's going to let you do that, really.
mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I started my own grooming business from home. My husband
Okay.
turned a camper into a grooming business for me.
Oh,
So I
that's
do that from
cool.
home. I also edit pictures for a lady that I work for.
Okay.
Um, so I have found a lot of things to do from home
Mm-hmm.
so I can be home, but I do miss working
Yeah.
like a full time job, feeling like I'm doing something for my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's hard because we do have to set aside like so much of us to care for them,
yes.
and I always, one of the things that when I first wanted, because I've wanted to do this show forever, but then I'm always like, always afraid I'm going to offend somebody by, saying the wrong word, because, but I'm like, you're going to offend somebody no matter what. But
Right.
then also too, just taking in consideration the feelings, because there's a lot of people that have a disability. They're going to sit there and listen to this. I don't want them to feel like they are burdens, because
Right.
and I always try to tell my daughter that too, because and she asked me one time in the bathroom, she's like, am I a burden, or something to that effect? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm praying that when I come across on these interviews that I say it properly, because that's the last thing I ever want them to feel,
Right.
because they're not. It's a lot on both
Right.
ends, and
And
on every end. And it
yes.
really needs to be shared, and everybody, them, us, everybody involved needs the support, and needs an outlet. Um and I keep saying
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, I feel bad. I feel awful. I tell my husband all the time. I literally cry all the time because I'm like, I feel like my sister knows, but I feel like people looking in, for some reason, I care too much about what people think looking
think.
in as far as taking care of my sister. As far as my daughter, it ain't nobody's business. So that's where
Mhm.
the different line is.
Mhm.
Why I care, why I do that, I don't know why I do it. But
Mhm.
that's a huge problem is I don't want people to think that I feel like my sister's a burden, but I also want people to understand that it's exhausting.
Yes. It's
There's
not
a line,
easy.
and
Yes.
I feel like my feelings should also be valid, but I feel
Validated.
bad for
Mhm.
expressing them.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you're right that you don't ever want somebody to feel like they're a burden, but at the same time, you want people to be
Know
able to
the
feel
reality of it.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah. And people don't know unless they walk in our shoes.
right,
They really, really don't. They don't.
right.
What, so, all right. So I know it's hard. Anytime that you don't want to share anything, please. But
No.
if you can walk us through the experience from the time that your parents passed away up until present
Mhm.
time. So, like, for instance, how was the transition for everyone having her come live with you? Um, and we did touch on about how the relationship kind of changed a little bit. But how was that transition when it first happened?
So, just to throw this in there so it doesn't confuse you or anyone else, I am very close to my daughter's biological mother and sister. I
Okay.
call my daughter's aunt my sister. While we have no contact with her biological dad or anything, they are still heavily involved in her life, as well as
Okay.
his dad and his wife.
Okay.
So he's just the only one not involved. So when I say my sister Shelby, we're not blood related, but that's just who she is to me.
Yes. Okay.
So when my mother died, the day my mom died, my sister still lived there with her.
Okay.
Um, my mother was under hospice care, and I was actually there with her, and she was up and moving around and was doing fine. And she was like, "I don't feel right. Call hospice. Please help me. I don't feel right." And I was like, what do you mean?" So my mother ended up passing that day. Well, Shelby, which I call my sister, she came and picked my girls up before my mother passed, and she let them come stay the night with her because I was like, I don't know what to do. But is she dying? Did she take too much medicine? Like nobody knew what was going on. So I was scared because I was like, how do I just move my sister from here to my house?
Yeah.
This isn't enough time. I have no time to prepare for this. Even though my mother had been sick with heart disease, heart failure, all kind of stuff. So my mother was sick for years. My mother was sick for years.
Yeah.
Didn't know if that just meant she wasn't feeling right or if she was going to pass. So I begged my mother for years prior, like, hey, please help my sister become more independent. You're enabling her. That's why I say that, because
Mm-hmm.
she's going to live with me one day and you're going to make it harder on her. Well, my
Mm-hmm.
mom was like, you can deal with that when I'm dead. So that's the repercussions from that. That's what I mean by that is you want to make sure that it's an easy transition for both of
Transition.
you if that's something that you've been told that you've got 6 months to live.
Yeah.
Like that, you got to prepare for that. My mom didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So Shelby did that, and my mom's funeral was a couple days later, and we ended up telling my sister that she went to heaven, and my sister actually sang at my mom's funeral. Um, so that was really cool. She actually twerked on the preacher. So we played Trouble by Travis Tritt for my mom's video thing that was on there. So that's just who I am. I'm a very joking, it's a serious moment. Let's not do this right now.
Yeah.
Why do we need to do that? I mean, my father's funeral, I played Metallica. So I try my hardest to not be in the moment due to there's just a time and place, and that wasn't the time and place I wanted everybody to be so sad,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So my mom was a jokester as well. So it was hard for my sister to transition into that. My dad started coming around more. My dad worked out of town, and I was making decent money where I was like, Dad, I'll pay you to come help me. I mean, my dad had bills and stuff too. He had
Yeah.
things. So he would work part time and he would come and help me with my sister. So me and my dad had the most amazing relationship after my mom passed because it was that important
Yeah.
to me. And my dad and my sister had a closer relationship because when she lived with my mom, she didn't want to come over. She didn't want to go nowhere. She wanted to be at home with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So he was helping me tremendously. And we went to the Great Wolf Lodge for my sister's birthday, and the next day he died. So that was another transition of having to tell my sister that my dad died. So she moved in with me. We did that transition, and then my dad died, and she just doesn't understand death. So she's
Yeah.
crying nightly, wanting my mom to come. She'd wake up in the morning, and it was like repeating myself, and I still do it to this day. Where's mommy? When's mommy coming back? And it's like a gut-wrenching feeling having to explain
I
that
know.
every day. She's not coming back. My dad's not coming back. And then when my grandma passed away, which she used to live with as well, that's it. Because she would go stay with my grandma some in her house in her old room.
Mm-hmm.
And that outlet for my sister was not there after my grandmother passed.
Right.
And we have such a huge family. We all gathered there every Friday, even after my mom passed. So it's like the lifeline that we had was just gone.
Gone.
We couldn't go to my family's really much anymore. Nobody really got together anymore. My mom had the whole family helping her out. And we lived in Bessemer City, which is 30 minutes away.
Okay.
So we didn't have an outlet. We didn't have as much help as I was used to. And my dad was the help that I had. So the transition for that was hard for me and for her. So we ended up moving to my dad's house in Belmont. Well, that lasted about a year, and my dad died in that house, and we just didn't like it. My sister didn't want to go in his room. It was just too traumatizing for all of us. I was like, you know what? So my daughter's other grandmother, Suzanne, she lives here. She lived here in Bessemer, and she moved to Florida. Well, her and her husband gave us the land that they have up here in Bessemer City. And he passed away. So my daughter lost her step granddad, and this was all within that year also. And my sister knew him as well. So it was just a lot of loss within a year. So everybody was just mentally exhausted.
Yeah.
And I actually ended up selling my dad's house, and we had a brand new 4-bedroom mobile home, double wide, put out here on the land. So we have started fresh. I got my sister a camper that she was staying in for a while to have her own place. And then my husband and I ended up making her a tiny home in the backyard. So she has her own place to go to when she wants to. It's decorated with Mickey Mouse. So the transition from her being with my mom every day to this has been hard, and it still is hard because there's still things that her routines, even though it's been 3 years, it was a routine for 10.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just been mentally exhausting having to explain every day, and I'd get mad sometimes when she'd ask. I'm like, they're dead. They're just dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd calm down and I'd come back and talk to her because remember, I'm her sister. I'm not her parent.
Mm-hmm.
You get frustrated with your siblings, and there's not one person on this earth that's going to tell me that they do not or have not, because that's what I have to remind people is I get frustrated too.
Mm-hmm.
She's mad. I'm mad. I don't want to have to tell her every day. Then I have to remind myself she's not understanding. Let's back up. Apologize.
It's kind of like somebody where how they say when you're, Alzheimer's, when they ask you. Yeah.
Yes. And then she'll cry a lot. And she was saying, well, I want a new mommy. She thought that we could just go out there and put her with someone new as a new mommy. And it can't happen. I mean, I haven't fully got to grieve my parents, I feel, or my grandparent, all 4 of them, the way that I should yet. And it's been 3 years losing all of them. And I've still pushed it back because I don't know when to, there's not a time or place. You don't know when you're going to grieve, but I just can't. I don't have time. So I don't want to do that to my girls. Not that I do anything crazy, but I mean, I do cry a lot. And I have moments where I like scream cry, and my husband takes the girls. You can't help it. You can't help that heavy feeling.
And you have to let it out. You can't keep it.
Right. And you don't get to choose when that happens.
Yeah.
So I have moments where I have to go be by myself, and I just don't know what to do because repeating it so much, it just hurts more and more the more you say it. So it's just a lot to explain to somebody who doesn't understand. And we've seen therapists. I've taken her to special therapists for people that understand people like her better with grief and stuff. And everything we have done, it's not clicking for her.
Yeah.
So I've tried everything everybody's recommended. I've tried it all. Now we're just to a point where it's just a part of our daily routine. We move on from it. So it's gotten a lot better as far as her asking. She don't ask nowhere near as much. And a lot of times she'll cry and say, I don't want to die and stuff like that. So that's very hard.
Yeah, because you really don't know what's going through her mind.
I don't. I don't. And she doesn't exactly have sentences. So when you ask her, like, hey, what's going through your mind? She'll just say mommy or daddy. Or she calls our grandma Ira Voss. That was her name, but she'd call her Ira Voss. Or she'd go Ira Voss. And I'm like, what about grandma now? It's just so hard to explain. My husband, he's great with it. he has moments where he's frustrated because he's like, dude, can we not do this today? With
Mhm.
things my sister does. So,
Mhm. And how about your daughter? How has your daughter transitioned to everything? Because, now not all eyes, are on her. Now you
right.
have someone else to care for, kind of
So
putting
it's
you in that situation, like
actually,
taking you back to your, like,
yeah, it's actually, so my sister has always been jealous of Hazel. Always. Since she was born, it was hard for my mom to be able to do anything with Hazel because from Heather, it was all about Heather. There's nobody else.
Mhm.
So that was hard. And my mom and I would have talks all the time because I'm like, hey, can you try to get her to understand that she's got to be nice? And she loved Hazel when she was a baby. And my sister helped me the most when my daughter was a baby. But it's like when she got older into a toddler and was going and doing things, and my parents were doing things with her, she didn't like it.
Mhm.
But my daughter, to be 8 years old and to go through what she's gone through, I am so proud of her because she's so good with my sister. Sorry.
No, oh my gosh, you're fine. It doesn't makes them grow
she,
up. They have to grow up quicker,
she
but
did.
they
She had
learn.
to grow up quicker. She gets so upset when people are mean to my sister. She does not let people be mean to my sister. She actually educates so many children about my sister that
Mm.
is so heartwarming because she wants people to know that she might be different, but she's normal and there's nothing wrong with her and there's nothing to be afraid of because children are scared of people that are mentally handicapped because they don't understand why they're talking different, why they look different.
Mhm.
And that's okay. But it's
Mhm.
our job as an adult, it's our job as a parent, it's our job as a sibling, as a human to
Mhm.
teach children what that is normal. It's just a different kind of normal.
Yeah.
It's our job to teach children not to be mean. And it's okay to ask questions, just what questions to ask.
Ask. Mhm.
So my daughter has done phenomenal. My sister gets mad and will try to fight with her and stuff, and my daughter will completely move herself into a different room. She's just like a tiny adult that she just does it.
Mhm.
I don't have issues with my daughter in the first place. She's very
Mhm.
well mannered and
Mhm.
she's just completely understanding and I get
And she's
scared.
learning all that empathy. You
Yeah,
never know what she's gonna be when she
right.
grows up.
I get scared that she's gonna have trauma as an adult from this. That does scare me.
Okay.
Um, because it is a lot to take in
Mhm.
for a 6, 7-year-old at the
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
So I do get scared of that and I do try to talk to her about it more. So I
And
mean,
I think that the times are different now than when you grew up. And because you knew what you lacked in the education part and that you lacked growing up and how you were scared and didn't understand things, you now can explain to her because you've kind of went through it already with your sister. So now you can explain to her the things.
right,
So
right,
I think if anything, she will grow from this and she'll have more empathy. And you never know, she might grow up to be a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a
right.
counselor,
And I
or
mean,
something in
yeah,
that field, in that helping field of
absolutely.
others.
I'm just hard on myself, and I don't mean to be, but us as parents, that's just a scary feeling to
Hmm.
have is, hey, how is this going to
Yeah.
be negative on her or is it positive? But she just informs people and she goes, so I got my sister finally, which is what my family had pushed for after my mom passed away. Well, before my mom passed away, I actually have her an adult program
Hmm.
called Abound Health here in Gaston County. I don't know if
Okay.
it's statewide. I don't know where else they are, but she goes to them. She could go full time Monday through Friday, 9 to 3, but that's such a huge, drastic change for her
For
because
her.
she's so used to being home. She
Hmm.
goes Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays, 9 to 3.
Hmm.
Now, if she's having a bad day, she's not going nowhere. That
Right.
brings me back to I can't really keep
We,
a
yeah.
job because if she's
Mhm.
wanting to be home and having a bad day, I need to be
Be
home
home. Right.
to figure out what's going on or to fix what's going on or to, figure it out.
Hmm.
But there is a program that she's in now, and I am on the list. And they said it's like a 7-year wait, but I'm on the list finally because I want to get her a one-on-one beside, like, even if it was my cousin, but not to sound rude and unthankful, but my cousin only gets paid $9 an hour, which that would have been anybody. Anybody.
So
So,
you and I also need to connect and talk after this too, because of the fact that, and same with other people that are listening too. So here in Maryland,
mhm,
we have different agencies. Like we have the ARC, which the ARC is in all different states and stuff, and they have chapters within different states. We have Richcroft, we have the Harford Center. So there's different places, just like where your sister goes. And
mhm,
we have, so on different waivers, and this is what you have to find out because, and I guess I'll just explain some of this now because of the fact that, it's resources that people can
right.
look into, but there's autism waivers and there's developmental disability waivers and there's different waivers within those waivers. So my daughter, when she was 7, I put her on the developmental disability waiver on the waiting list. Her name came up when she was 17. So she started getting supports when she was 17. If not,
Mhm,
when she turns 21, that's when she will get her supports. But once we put in that waiver, we had a coordinator that touched base with us yearly, always yearly, to find out the updates. And with the waiting list, it went by basically priority of your crisis and what kind of help that they needed. So you can either go 2 routes. You can go the traditional route, which is where you would go through an agency,
mhm.
and or you can get supports and they would be the ones that would hire on. They can go to the day program, or if they had a one-on-one or a personal supports, they would go through them. So basically they would do the hiring, the training, all of that. And then there's the self-direct side. So the self-direct side is basically, it's more work on you, but self-direct, and you should see it. I don't know, not every state has it, but if your state has it, I would recommend it, looking into it. So self-direct, you have more, the individual has more say on their budget. Okay. So you
Okay.
would sit with that coordinator and you would sit there and do a personal support plan, personal, person-centered, person-centered plan with them. Um, and you would put all that stuff in the plan. Okay, well, we want her to go to the day program 3 days a week. We want her to have funds to go towards a gym or therapeutic horseback riding or music or anything like that. Or she needs this type of assistive technology. All of that stuff can go in through that budget and get paid for. You hire on a support broker. That support broker, those funds are in the budget. So it's not coming out of your pocket. You can pay your
Okay.
people more money. So it's kind of cutting out the middleman. It's more work on you because you have to find the employees. But to me, with us, it was no matter who, some agencies, you can say, oh, hey, I have, I would love to hire on this person. Would you hire them on? Sometimes they're like, no, they hire on their own people, but
Right.
they're afraid. But whoever you hire on, whether it's somebody they hire on or someone you hire on, they're gonna become family anyway because
Right.
they're taking care of your family and they're they're
Right.
they're there with you, and you know what I
Absolutely.
mean. So
That's what I'm pushing for. That's what I've been
yeah.
pushing for is somebody to come take my sister to do things
Mm-hmm.
because people are like, well, why can't you do it? She don't want to do it with me. I'm her
Exactly.
sister. That's what I try to understand. Like
Yes.
get people understand. My sister's missing from some of our family photo shoots and stuff like that. She didn't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So she
Yep.
looks very left out, but she's not. It's
Not
her own choice. I'm not going to make her go do things if she don't want to go do them. But
right.
I would love that's what I've been trying for 3 years now is to get on that. I am on the list now, but is to get pushed up so somebody can come and take her to do things. The day program is amazing and I absolutely
Mm-hmm.
love it, but she wants to go bowling more. She wants to go do other things
Right.
more.
Right. And
But
so with that budget, like also you put in there too, they have funds that they put in there for activities like that. Because again, so I have respite for faith. All right, they're going out and they're going to go bowling. I would still put out that money because I don't expect her worker to pay for herself to go bowling when she's
right,
on the clock.
right.
So you can actually put those funds in that budget. And like with us, I would put it in, give them the receipt, the proof that it was paid, and then you get reimbursed. So there's a
Okay.
lot of things that can go into it. And again, so I didn't have enough hours really to make it worthwhile for anybody for face. So I'm actually, and another thing with self-direct, they're allowed to hire on family. So I'm actually on staff for my daughter for personal support. When
Mm-hmm.
she's done school, I can actually ask for more hours, and then I can hire somebody else on, because again, like you said, she doesn't want to be with mom all the time. She wants to go
Right.
out and do her own thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important for them. But yeah, we're still the main caregiver. So it's nice that, okay, I can actually work for her and not
Mm-hmm.
like kill myself working 5 million jobs here and there, which I'm killing myself anyway because
Right.
I can never sit still. But there's so much out there that people don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And that's why it's so important to get hooked
Right.
up with a support program, or advocates in your areas, that can help you like navigate all of that stuff, because
Right.
it's very, very hard. And that goes back to like, like you said with your mom. So when she did pass, she didn't have anything set up as far as, so you had to navigate a lot of that on your own.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I had to figure out a lot of it. And I had people telling me, well, you can do this, well, you can do this, well, you can do this. Kathy, the lady that comes to my rescue all the time,
Yes, the bus driver.
she, I'm telling you. So if my sister's good for the week, she's allowed to call Kathy. If she's bad, she doesn't get to call Kathy. That's who Kathy is to me. She is my lifesaver.
Favor, yeah.
Kathy has came and seen my sister in person. She don't have to do that. She doesn't do that for other people because she has to separate her work from her personal life.
Mm-hmm.
And she's had quite a few stalkers. You say stalkers, but it's mentally handicapped people that didn't understand, and they had this connection with Kathy, but Kathy has her own
Yes.
personal life. So
Right.
she had to stop reaching out to people and trying to help people, but she stuck by us.
Right.
But she's taught me so many things and done so many things. Like Heather has 32 hours a month respite care. That's
Mm-hmm.
what my cousin gets paid to do, and that's
Yep.
$9 an hour for my cousin to be able to do that. But I'm like, man, that has to suck.
Is it through the Medicaid waiver, or is it getting paid through Medicaid or through developmental disabilities? Do you know?
Medicaid.
Yeah, that's why. Because Medicaid here, it was very, very low compared to DDA, which is the developmental disability. So if you can try and go for a developmental disability waiver versus a Medicaid waiver, like Faith qualifies for a Medicaid waiver because she's on what they call rare and extreme management. It's called REM. It's just part of the Medicaid program that she's on. It opened her up so she could get personal supports and respite through there. But
Okay.
their pay is like $10 an hour as well,
Okay.
whereas the DDA is a lot more.
Right. Which I'm not saying I'm not thankful for that. Don't think I'm saying
No,
I'm not thankful.
no.
It's just
You're always
I
thankful.
probably wouldn't do it for $9 an hour. I'm not even gonna lie. To support my family, $9 an
And
hour ain't happening.
I interviewed a girl. She actually just texted me before this, where she just made Miss Wheelchair Pennsylvania again. And that's what she's advocating for, is for higher wages for direct support personnel to come in and care for them.
Yeah.
Because they don't, you can go make $15 at a Burger King.
Right.
Hello, but this is a
I'm just asking
human.
for help
Yeah,
for a
and this is
human.
a human being that
Yes.
needs help and has feelings, and like, it's could be, hello, a matter of some of them whether they eat or not, or if they can
Mhm.
fix them their own meal or
Absolutely.
take a
I mean,
shower, or it's they're so underpaid. It is
yes.
ridiculous.
Yes. My sister, so I will say this, my sister was getting disability monthly when my mother was alive, and up until my dad passed away, we now get his social security checks,
Mm-hmm.
which is double what she was getting, and that helped us like for Christmas this year, I don't know what to get the girls. They literally have everything they want. And that's the difference is I do take my sister's money and I put it towards her things, but I also put it towards our bills,
You have to.
stuff like that. And people are like, well, your sister, you need to be making a savings account for your sister. Don't worry, I eventually will. But right now, it was hard to have to get a house for all of us. It was hard to
Mm-hmm.
do
And that
all
they
of
don't
this.
understand, even though, yeah, it's helping that she's getting both checks, but they still don't realize those social security checks don't go a long way.
No, it was um
It
for my
it
mom, it was 800.
Yeah. It really doesn't go a long way when considering the
Not when
care,
she
the
has a
need, the
cell phone.
bills. Yeah.
Yep. I
Yep.
mean, you got to think just because we have Wi-Fi, her money still needs to go towards the Wi-Fi because
Hmm.
she's using it. You have to treat those things that way.
Yeah.
If you're going to be at home doing the best you can.
Hmm.
And that's what people don't understand. I have family members that do say that I use my sister for a paycheck and stuff like that. And that hurts because I could make it just fine without my sister. I'd
Hmm.
have to work a 40-hour job,
But
which
then
is
you couldn't
fine
take
with
care of
me.
her. Right.
But I have to be at home taking care of her, and I still make my own money, and we still can pay the bills without that. But in the way that it's set up, I have to show that she's paying for these things, or she
Yeah.
doesn't get it. That's
Yeah.
where the middleman
Yeah.
is.
And that's another piece too that people don't understand. And I try to help people that are starting, like when they're coming to get Social Security. Like I have, you know, a file, everything that every receipt, I save every receipt. I highlight, if I go to the grocery store, I could do better. I could just like put all her stuff on one, but I'm like, I highlight it. I have a
Right.
spreadsheet. You have to save all of your receipts because you can get audited at any time.
I messed up in the past 2 years. I didn't. Nobody told me that. I saved nothing.
Yeah.
I just learned this year that I was supposed to be saving that stuff. And I'm like, you can come look. She has
Mm-hmm.
a cell phone. She has a computer. Like she wants things. Her money goes towards our vacations for her,
Mm-hmm.
herself, the
Yeah.
food for herself. My sister eats Taco Bell every weekend. My sister wants a slushie. She
Mm-hmm.
wants something, she gets it, but it's
Mm-hmm.
with that money. And
Right.
I didn't know. And that's one thing I wish that was
Somebody would tell
more
you.
pushed is that you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to keep up with that. I
Yep.
didn't. I didn't know to.
Yep.
I thought they knew that that money went towards her, but I guess people abuse the system.
Yep.
I never would have thought about abusing the system, so therefore that never crossed my
Because your
mind
mind. Yep.
to do
And
to
I would
save.
have, I would have never known either unless I worked for the ARC, and I've always been, going involved in support groups and advocacy groups and that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And again, another passion on why I wanted to start this was also to help and provide resources for people that are coming on. They may listen to this and be like, oh, wow, I didn't know that either. Well, hello, there you go. You know
I
what I
mean, I
mean?
could lose so much if they wouldn't have understood my situation
Yeah. Yeah.
and been like, "Well, where's the receipts?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"For what?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank God that they understood the situation. And I was like, I was never told any of that. Everything literally just got pushed over to me to figure out. There was no notes. I didn't even
Yeah.
have my sister's social security card. I didn't have her ID or nothing. We also have addicts in the family. And when my mom passed away, all my mother's things were stolen literally while she was dying. Her purse, my mom's ID, every single important information that my mom had in her purse was for my sister. Somebody stole the purse, so therefore things got gone that I needed. I
Yeah.
had to start 100% fresh
Yeah.
and didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
I
Being a
wasn't on any
young mom
paperwork
on your
saying
own.
to do
And
that.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was hard, and I'm begging my family, and they don't know either. I mean, nobody
Mm-hmm.
knew. My mom did not have anything set up to help me out. I didn't know her doctor, didn't know her dentist, didn't know absolutely nothing. Then came to find out, and this is really personal, but I think that it should be talked about a lot more. My mother, for a while, was getting prescription drugs through my sister, going and saying that she was having bad headaches for herself. So I was like, they were telling me all these medicines, and I was like, she doesn't need to be on none of those. So I did, by my own choice, take all my sister off of her medications and
Mm-hmm.
started fresh with
Mm-hmm.
her psychiatrist. Um,
A lot of
and it
times
took
that's
us a while to
necessary.
figure that out, but I needed to know what my sister needed to be on. And that's the hard thing is these doctors are just like, oh, they need that? Here, here.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
questions asked. I did change doctors and I did our doctor that we have now, which is Dr. Aguirre. She's amazing. Um, I let her know all of these things and she was like, you're right, let's start fresh and go
Mm-hmm.
from there. And my sister is the most healthiest person ever. So for her to be prescribed all these things blew my
Mm-hmm.
mind.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is something I wish was talked about more. I do feel like medication does need to be looked into further because they had no business, I personally think, prescribing her those type of medications.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And that's just kudos to you, being young, having your own child, newly married and having to take on all of this. It's a
Mhm.
lot,
It is.
so you've really, God put you where you're supposed to be.
He did. He definitely did. It's very emotional for me when people wanna talk about my sister or talk about the situation. I just don't know what to do much other than cry because I'm like, I truly wish people knew how mentally hard it is, and this isn't to doubt anybody or to make anybody feel bad.
Yeah.
I'm her sister, therefore, it's just a different toll for me. It's not I'm still growing up myself. I
Mhm.
might be 32 years old, but I'm still growing up myself.
Mhm.
I didn't expect to be way older for my parents to die.
Mhm.
So my sister chose to live with me versus living with our dad, and that's just how that happened.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
could take care of her better than he could, I thought, even though there was nothing wrong with her going to live with him. I just,
Mhm.
I was like, I want her here. I want her to know she's loved. I want her to know she's cared for.
Yeah.
I want to know she's okay. So when people are like, put her somewhere, I'm like,
Yeah.
don't talk to me.
Mhm.
You're done. I've cut a lot of family members off due to that.
Yeah.
I'm not dealing with that.
So, knowing what you know now
Mhm.
and going through what you have been through with both of your parents passing and not having things like set up, what if you were talking to the parents out there,
Mhm.
what would you want them to know
I just This
for
is me speaking to my parents. Like, if I was speaking to my parents and was
yes.
able to tell them things that has happened or that I wish was different, I wish that they would have prepared my sister more for them to not be here, especially knowing that my mom was sick. There was things that my sister could have done on her own that my mom had regrets and wanted to make up for to my sister, therefore catered to her and babied her, is what I
Mhm.
call it. I'm sorry to
Mhm.
offend anybody. This isn't downing anybody by no means for how people do or how people parent. And this is by no means me trying to bully anybody.
Oh God, no.
Just from my personal
Yeah.
experience. But you get what I'm saying. It
Yeah, no,
sounds
absolutely.
harsh,
It doesn't sound
but
harsh. It does not sound
my
harsh.
mom could have done so much different. My sister knows how to make her own food. My sister can make her own drink. My sister can take a shower. She needs help, but she knows how to pick out her own clothes. She knows how to do so much. And my mom just did it all for her. My mom would take her a tray in the bed. I wish parents just prepared for that. Now, you don't want to prepare for death. That's hard, but given these situations,
It's
who
gonna
is your child
happen.
going to go to if something happens?
Mhm.
Have you prepared that person? Have you showed that person what they need? Do you have the files that they need to know information on? Or are you just pushing it aside? Which I'd probably push it aside too. It's not something I'd want to think about. I would never want to think about leaving my daughter
Mhm.
or my sister. But given the stuff that I know now, I had no paperwork to go by. I had no social security number. I had no information other than what I knew.
Mhm.
Nobody else knew anything. If something happens to you, is where your child going safe? Is their house prepared for that? Like, it's a lot to think about. You can say so and so is going to take care of them. Well, what if they have a one-bedroom home? Where's your child going to go? So what if something was to happen to you right after you said that? Well, your child can't go there if there's not room for them to go there.
Mhm.
So it's more of my parents were like, well, we always knew, and I always knew growing up, I would take care of my sister if anything happened to my parents. There was no question about that.
Mhm.
My dad always would joke, and to us it was funny, but he'd always be like, I only had you to take care of your sister when I'm dead and gone. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, it happened.
Mhm.
No information. Didn't know who to take her to. I'd call Medicaid. I wasn't my sister's guardian,
Mhm.
so I wasn't allowed to have any information. I'd call her
Nation.
doctor's offices. I couldn't get nothing. So is there something legally written saying that person is to do these things? Because you want to make it as easy as possible because it is a hard transition. It's a lot different than, adopting a child or having a baby and stuff like that, because you have that information. If
Mhm.
the next person who's taking care of a sibling or anybody, if you don't have nothing to go off of, some people probably have given up and put them in a
Mhm.
home because it's hard. They don't know what to do. Well,
True.
that's easier because they're going to find that information for them.
Mm-hmm.
And putting them in a home isn't a bad thing. I don't want people to think I'm downing that
Right.
either. It's just my sister's more aware of what's going on and love and has those emotional feelings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So would know if I put her in a home, feel abandoned.
Right.
So I just hope the parents out there do have a better plan. And if it is somebody that's going to care for your child, there needs to be paperwork in place stating, hey, this person can ask for these things.
Yeah.
This person can do these things to make that transition at least easier, because I absolutely couldn't get my sister's, I couldn't get nothing.
Yeah.
Now, I still can't get her. I'm still waiting to be able to get her social security card. So, and she has to have that to have an ID.
Yeah.
So I don't have an ID. It's still a process. It's been 3 years. My parents, I feel like they set me up for failure. And I've navigated through that, but I do feel they set me up for failure because there's nothing. So
So we
that is
just we just did our special needs trust for Faith, and it was very hard because I have been after my husband for a while. I'm like, and especially with COVID too. I'm like, one, you can be gone tomorrow anytime. COVID, it was the height of everything, made you even think even more.
right.
And he was one, it really bothered him. Where me, I just felt like such a relief to, like, okay, now this trust is set up. God, for not that we have anything to put in it right now, but
Right.
at least it's there.
Mhm.
And then also too, the biggest thing was the trustee, because again, so our son is 24. He just turned 24. He's in the Army. I don't know how long he's going to be in. Is he going to be a lifer? I don't know. God forbid, with what's going on in the world, what if something happened to him? And then I feel
Mhm.
that guilt of being like, oh, I'm selfish because, I'm thinking about who's going to take care of Faith when you know what I mean? Like, so you have
Right.
all those
Absolutely.
things in your mind. And then again, too, it's a lot, and it's a lot to have to responsibility to put on him, the financial burden too. So speaking to people and advocates and stuff, and them asking the hard questions. So we decided that we ended up going with First Maryland Disability Trust. We, did an interview with them. They were amazing. I did a podcast, an interview for this with them too. But they, when you do it, they ask you all those questions, and then they ask for updates because you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
So again, medications, doctors, what's their routines, what their
Yes.
likes, what's their dislikes, all of those things. So say if they do, say we pass away, and say she wanted to live in a home, in a ranch, or in a group home with a couple
Mhm.
individuals at the Ark, you know
Mhm.
they would be able to advocate for her. They get to know her, yet not only through paper, but they will go and see them person to
Right.
person. And that's with anybody. And we wanted but we wanted JD to be able to be the bigger brother and still be the brother, and help her make those informed decisions. Not saying yes, hopefully he would take her, but then he wouldn't have to worry about all the, because there's that big, huge, again, financial piece that you have
Yep.
to work on and do, and reporting, and especially when special needs trust comes in and it's just so much and overwhelming.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
okay, let them take care of the trustee part with the financial stuff, and
Mhm.
then he can just be brother. Um, and again, it's there, eh, again, with guardianship. So with guardianship, it's very hard when the state has guardianship,
Right.
because that's not always the best thing.
Right. I mean,
It's a
here they
scary
said that
thing.
they've never seen this here. The judge that I had and the attorney, the guardian ad litem attorney, that was going against me, even though he wasn't against me. He was just, you have to do the good and the bad.
Right.
Um, they were in awe that I was doing this. I mean, the court papers, I mean, you could just reading the court papers that they said, you could just feel their emotion of I guess how proud they are of me, of how they didn't see it coming. They
Mm-hmm.
said that usually they see these situations bad.
Bad. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that hurts. But at the same time, as a sibling, I can see from the other side of being like, hey, I can't do this.
Yeah. Yep.
Not everybody can
Who
do
can
it.
do
And
it?
that's okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
okay. I don't
Yeah.
want anybody to feel bad if they've been put in this situation and their sibling had to go to a home. I mean, it's hard. It's rough. you know,
no matter what way you cut it, you're always going to have that worry. You're always going to have that worry.
Right. And I mean, I just want people to be prepared, or to at least have their child prepared for those situations, whether you want to be or not. You don't want them to be a burden more than what is given. Yeah. And they're not a burden, but it could feel that way if things aren't there.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. So I sent you an email about what's your word. So I gift all of my guests a word. And I wanted to know if you'd be willing to share what that word was and why you chose it.
Yes. So I thought really hard on this, and I've been back and forth, and I did a little Facebook post, letting people know, because I want to, I don't know the right word, but boost you guys. I want my friends and family and people I don't know. I want people around here in my community and above and beyond to know who y'all are, because I think this is amazing. For one, it's so heartwarming that there are people that want to know my story. They want to know how I handle it, because it is hard. But I want people to understand that we're still doing it. We're here. And my word is balance. I have to completely balance all of this out. I have to balance having a daughter, have to balance being a sister, being a wife, my job, but balance. You just have to balance all of it. If you don't balance it, you're going to become crazy. So balance is 1000% how I feel. A lot of people on my post, they said theirs would be patient. But my husband, his uncle was mentally handicapped. So my husband's family is very understanding. And he passed away years ago, but he did a thing at Gaston Skills. I think that's what it's called. And so he was, I think he had developmental delay. I'm not sure, but he was functioning. He could drive and do things and stuff like that. But my husband's grandma said patience was hers. So I think balance is mine.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, you're like, I'm like, I need my I wish I could like hug you through the camera.
Thank you.
Well, it's really
connecting with people far, it's like, I wish I was there. I wish I could learn more. I wish I knew this show was a thing beforehand. Like I said, I want my friends and family to learn all of this so they can understand this a whole lot better than just being here.
Yeah.
So,
well, I appreciate you sharing your story and being vulnerable, because it's not easy what you've been through. I can't begin to imagine what you've gone through and what you're going through. But I can say that you were doing an amazing job just by listening to you and hearing your story and seeing the posts that you have posted in the short time that we have been Facebook friends. And I think that you're an example to be led. I mean,
thank you. I on my Facebook, and I don't mind people adding me, because I try to be as real as I can on my Facebook about my sister. I do updates and stuff. I do a lot of updates and stuff because people are curious. I do the good times. I'm very raw. So, if anybody wants to look at my Facebook, you're more than welcome to, and you can see my sister and follow along the journey if you want to. If you don't, I mean, it's not like a crazy Facebook page. It's just, I'm very raw and very want people to understand our situation. So
yeah, I learned from that.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for tuning in to listen to her. I appreciate it. And stay tuned for another episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us as we spread awareness through our personal stories and the many resources shared. You can help us by joining our village simply by sharing our show to the masses. If you would like to support the Guilbault Girls on another level, click on the link in the show notes to make a donation in any amount. Add your address and you'll receive a hand-stamped token with the word village on it in appreciation. Be sure to subscribe to our Guilbault Girls podcast and YouTube show, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Guilbault Girls. Till next time.